my name's Shaun Holbrow, and I'm basically, I guess, a self-taught dowser by complete chance, really. Um, we were working on a quarry. Well, sorry, I used to work on a quarry, and we were going to dig up the haul road. Needed some repair works, and there was a major water pipe that ran across the haul road, and we couldn't locate it using a CAT scanner, which is like an electrical device that sends a wave into the ground that bounces back. So I said, well, why don't we try dowsing? And we got these bent welding rods, and after literally a couple of passes, we managed to locate this pipe in the ground, and we dug down probably 6 inches or so and hit this pipe. And the moment that happened, I really believed that there was something in dowsing. So I wanted to know more. So gradually went down the route of researching, and lo and behold, you come across ley lines and earth energies. Um, and I was just absolutely fascinated by the stone circles and ancient sites that we have around the United Kingdom. So I found out there was one, the Nine Ladies. It was relatively close by. I thought, well, I'm going to go here and I'll find this so-called ley line and see if these things exist. I got a little bit more than I bargained for, because actually, when I walked in between the stones, the rods just swung in, and that was really the defining moment that changed my understanding of, well, how life works, really, how forces work within the earth, and just basically opened up this enormous rabbit hole. And I've been going down it for 4 years so far. Um, it sort of led me on to actually delivering public talks. I created a, like a comprehensive dowsing workshop that literally goes through the basics, your fundamentals, if you like, through to quite in-depth earth energy dowsing, where we're looking at somatic patterns and blind springs and the consciousness of energy centers.
Mm.
So it's it's great when I deliver these workshops and people come back to me like, "Oh my God, my mind's absolutely blown," and it's absolutely an incredible journey I'm on, really. It's also led on to working in people's homes, locating lines of geopathic stress, and finding out the reasons as to why people potentially feel a a presence or don't quite feel settled within the home. And I can kind of shed a bit of a light as to why that might be, um, depending on the type of energy that's flowing or wandering around the house. Eventually, the rabbit hole led me on to meet Paul Vivian, on a completely chance meeting, wasn't it?
Mm. It really was. Yeah, it was incredible. Do you want me to go?
Yeah, go.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So, in terms of my background, it's less auspicious than Sean's, and I think what Sean does is incredible, as we'll get onto in a moment. I actually come from North Devon. That's where I originate. Appledore. I don't know if anybody knows Appledore, but I'm wearing my Appledore Football Club um, shirt today. Anyway. And so, in terms of how I started, I trained as an artist. I went to art school in London, and I was a painter. And then when I graduated, I continued painting, and then I eventually started doing draw. I was concentrating on drawing, and then I started making sculpture and things like that. And oh, a couple of miles from Appledore, Joe. Great, fantastic. And anyway, so really my background was as an artist, but I started working in education, teaching art, and I've now got the dubious position of Director of Art and Design and Creative Technology at the University of Salford. And so how do I arrive at all of this? Well, I've always had an interest in ancient monuments, but very much a sort of tourist interest, I suppose, and an interest sculpturally and architecturally. Spiritually, in terms of thinking about dowsing and thinking about earth energies, that was something I didn't never really interested me. I wasn't, say, convinced by it. So if I'd met you all 5 years ago or whatever, I'd be shaking my head like this, but I'm not doing that anymore. And so on the day that really things changed for me, I know when meeting Shaun for the first time, he started sort of dowsing, what, 2.5 years ago or something like that, 3 years ago, three
Yeah,
and a
nearly
bit.
four. Yeah,
Nearly
nearly 4 years.
four,
Yeah.
yeah. So mine was before I met Shaun was about 2.5 years, and it was an amazing experience that led me to start trying to record these acoustic resonant sounds coming from these sites. So what happened was that I had broken up with my girlfriend. So I hope everybody's weeping at this right now. And I was very, very annoyed at my work that I was doing in the studio. What do you do when you're feeling a bit upset? You go for a walk. And I went for a walk. I took my car to the Lake District because I'd seen on Instagram, dreaded Instagram, a an image of a stone circle called Swinside or Sunken Kirk, which is near Millom. I don't know if anybody knows that one. It's an incredible site, and it's out in the middle of nowhere. And I thought, I'm going there. So I 2.5 hours from Manchester, which is where I'm based, and I arrived in the Lake District, and there was nobody around. And I made my way to this stone circle, and this incredible sort of cinematic fog sort of fell on the around me as I arrived. And I just was blown away by it. It was so amazing. And there was nobody around. And it was so quiet as well. There was just the odd sort of, raindrops coming down, but this really, really thick fog. And you'll see an image, and I've actually shot a video of what I'm about to tell you, which I'm going to show you in the talk. So what happened was that I sat on one of the stones, which, by the way, I don't do anymore, and I was eating some peanuts and drinking some water, and all of a sudden I started hearing thumping going around the circle, dum 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 dum, bum bum bum, things like that. And I picked up my phone and I made a recording of about 30, 40 seconds of it, and it stopped. So after that, it stopped. I was so excited by this. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what it meant. I thought it was incredible, and I ran away and to the nearest pub actually, and I sat in the pub and I was trying to figure out what I just witnessed. I was playing the video back, listening to it. I was thinking, God, this is incredible. And also thinking about how I could maybe start to explore this. So I got very, very enthusiastic very quickly about it. So the next weekend, I went to a site which is near to Shaun, which is 9 stones close. And I tried to record the ambient sounds there, thinking I get the same thing, and nothing happened. So this is 4 stones as opposed to a complete-ish circle. So the following weekend, I went back and I bought some contact microphones, which are the sort of thing that you can put onto instruments and amplify them. And I didn't really know what to do with these, but I've been told to maybe try them out. So I went to the same site and I put the contact microphones all over the stones. So I would do 2-minute recordings, sorry, and just to see what would happen. And I didn't have any headphones, so I had no idea what was going on. And I sat in the car afterwards and I pressed play, and I heard this dum dum bum 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 like a really weird, as if somebody was knocking, you know, to come out, and that was amazing, and that led me on to a project of recording audio from stone circle ancient sites and standing stones. By the time that I met Shaun, that I'll get to, I recorded about 25 sites. So I've been traveling all over the country and experiencing the same kind of thing, which we'll talk you through some of the audio a bit later. Anyway, on the day that I met Shaun, I wasn't really supposed to be at this particular site. I was recording at the site in the previous weeks, and I'd started to make a film about it. My artwork, by the way, now is film. So I make films about these sites, and that's the art, if you like, of all of this. Anyway, and the first person I met was Shaun's mother. And I said, hello. I was being very polite. I said, hello, hi. I said, lovely day for it. And I turned around and I could see in the distance this very tall character using rods. And I had some rods in my bag because I'd met somebody the year before in Cornwall and kind of got curious about it. So I'm a real amateur, by the way, with all of this, but I have some sort of ability, but nothing like Shaun. And and so I turned to his mother and I said, that guy over there, not realizing that was our son. I said, oh, that guy over there doing the dowsing. I said, I did that last week. I said, it's incredible. She said, oh, you need to talk to my son. So I went over and spoke to Shaun and we got talking, and that was for about 2 hours. We just couldn't believe that there was this connection. And one of the most interesting things was I was saying to Shaun, I'm getting this kind of helicopter with the rods, and it's really weird. I said it's happened now 2 weeks in a row, and the same thing's happening, and I don't know what it is. And Shaun very confidently said, he said there's water underneath here, and this is the Farley Moor standing stone, by the way, if I didn't mention it already. And he said there's water underneath the stone. And I said, oh, right. Okay. Wow. And so we bid our goodbyes, said, see you then. And then Shaun came running back and he said, I can't leave without potentially hearing this water, So I had what's called a seismic microphone, which you stick into the earth and obviously listen to the movement of the earth, with that. And sure enough, we put the seismic microphone exactly where Shaun had said. And guess what? You could hear water. So you could hear running water underneath deep, into the earth underneath the stone.
It was so lively as well,
It
wasn't
was
it?
really lively. It was incredible. So as the amateur that I was, the rod spinning around like this, it all suddenly made sense. And I realized in that moment that all these recordings I've been making, all these kind of what felt very accidental all over the country and getting the same responses. And I'd started talking in conferences about it and meeting archaeologists and acoustics experts and things like that. And sometimes being a bit fobbed off, really, people telling me that it was a load of rubbish and that I should give up. I suddenly realized that there was this link between earth energies and dowsing and then maybe what I was doing. And in the first meeting with Shaun, that was proved. So we identified a line and then would record. I recorded, sorry, what I guess is an energy line, an audio, from an energy line. So that's a very long-winded way of how we got together, and I guess our two very divergent paths, really, with that. So
Wonderful. Thank you. That's a really illuminating introduction. It's fascinating to hear how your paths sort of started weaving together. And it's when we're out exploring, it just becomes more and more synchronicity and serendipity happening, doesn't it?
Yeah,
and you really know you're on the right path then.
Yeah, it really does. And just a quick thing is that I mentioned about my skepticism about dowsing. And even though I was trying it out, and I'd been trying it out before I met Shaun for probably about 6-7 months, I'd met a dowser in Cornwall at the Merry Maidens. And he told me he was an amateur as well, but he was going around, I could see him going around the circle and he had these helicopter moments with the rods. And so what happened was that when we had a nice chat and we exchanged details like you do. And when he left, I put my recording equipment on two stones that were facing each other where his rods were doing this. And I've got the recording I'm going to play you later. And it's like an engine rev. Dun, 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 like this, right? And then with Shaun, when we met for the first time, at Nine Stone Close properly. That's really where the project started.
First piece of field work, wasn't it?
First piece of field work that we did. I mean, firstly, I saw something that just blew my mind,
Yeah.
which was that we were measuring an Earth energy line and recording it and just doing some gentle experiments. And as we all stood up to talk about what I was telling everybody what I'd heard. So I said, oh, it was this. And it was, we looked down and there was a line of grass.
About an inch wide, wasn't it?
About an inch wide, that's exactly it, which was following that line that was shimmering like it was animated. And it was just.
There was no wind or anything. There was no influence to make this 1 inch strip of grass that went across the whole circle.
Yeah. Yeah,
just flicker as if it was like it was being pulsed with electric.
Oh, completely. It was pure electromagnetism, and we'll get on to something that happened a bit later on. But all I have to say is that every time I meet with Shaun to do any of our projects, it's never dull. There's always something that happens that's really extraordinary. If you'd like, I'll start sharing the slides, and we'll talk about. We'll expand on some of the things I suppose that we've been doing, because I know there's 2 slides in there that I've put in that I really want Shaun to talk about a lot of the work that he's been doing. Hang on, let's see if I can do it right. Hopefully this is all going to work nice and easy. So sharing the screen, there we are. Okay. So we've got audio. Good. Okay. So hopefully you can all see that. It's actually, you're getting sneak previews of everything we're going to be talking about. So I'll see if I can do this slideshow, play from start. Yeah. Okay, so hopefully you can see this. And as we said, we've just put in for a really big project, which we'll talk about at the end, which we're very excited about. And really, the title of that has kind of moved around as I'm doing it through my university basically, and they're making me jump through all sorts of hoops. But anyway, the bottom line is we've got a heritage society that's behind us on this, and is taking dowsing as a research activity very seriously. Unlike some colleagues at university that I work with that are involved in acoustics.
Yes.
That actually got us to pull a news article about what we're going to talk about at the end from the university website. So there's a lot of resistance out there, which I'm sure you can imagine. I'm sure you've come across before, the doubters and all of that sort of stuff. So mapping and recording hidden energies is a sort of title of the talk. It's about 12 slides, but we're gonna be kind of going all over the place, hopefully, with it. So
yes.
Let's see. Oh, maybe I can just do it here. Okay, so the first 2 slides are Shaun.
Yeah, so the first slide, I'm there at the 9 Stones Close, which are the biggest stones in Derbyshire. So there's basically 4 that remain. There's 2 more that are quite noticeable in the nearby dry stone walls. 9 Stones Close is actually linked in with Arborough-Henge, which is one of it's an enormous energy centre here in Derbyshire. It sits pretty much due north of Avebury as well, right on the alignment between Avebury and Linda's Farm Priory. So it's in quite an incredible location. Anyway, one of the lines that runs from Arborough intersects 9 Stones Close, and then I believe it heads on to the 9 Ladies. But in between there and 9 Ladies, you've got Dole Tor. But that stone circle is it's thrown me off cuff a little bit because the energies around there move in such a peculiar way. And it's on private land, so it's quite hard to track where the line actually flows through that particular circle. But 9 Stones Close sits in the shadow of a huge rock escarpment known as Robin Hood Stride. Now, it's on the cross of 2 lines. There's another line coming in from the south heading north. And where the lines sort of cross, there's more than one energy center I'm finding. There's almost like a ring of 8 small energy centers in the center. It sort of, I'd say, close to the center of the stone circle. It's got to be probably about 3 meters in from each stone. You almost have like, sorry, eight of these centers making up one huge energy center. And then there's this band of energy that appears to be flowing around the outside of the stones as well. And you've got the typical Avebury earth energies as well, where you can dowse the levels of the energy up each stone. The patterns I've found at 9 stones close, bit of a mouthful. I get confused between 9 stones close and 9 ladies. They're sort of elliptical, and they appear to be in this like a flower kind of shape, but very, very narrow and elliptical petals. When I first found these, it was like this moment of, I wasn't sure what I'd found. I really hadn't come across anything like it before. At the time, I thought energies were, you had your circles, you had these points where the rods would spin. But as I began using one dowsing rod, I was able to just find these subtle knocks just on the end. And I thought, well, let's just see what happens. And these incredible patterns started to emerge. And 9 stones close was really the catalyst for this. This is where I was able to train up and, try and tune into this sort of thing and practice finding these subtle energies. And then it took me over to 9 ladies eventually, and there was just, we'll get onto that slide in a moment, but it was a single energy center there, but the pattern was absolutely enormous. Probably one of the biggest I've actually found so far. Now, just talking about, I mentioned a rock formation called Robin Hood Stride. Now that sits probably 400 yards away from this stone circle. There's a line that flows north to south. And as you approach, if you track the line heading south and you approach the base of Robin Hood Stride, you've got this grassy hill that it's built upon, and then the rocks on top. As you reach the hillside, the line, it weaves as it goes across the field. But when it comes into contact with this hillside, the thing just coils up on itself like a snake. And you can track it up the hillside to this huge, well, it's the rock must be the best part of 100 tons. It's got to be. And it disappears into this rock. And the line reappears on the far side of the stride, but you can track the energies again from 2. I wish we had a picture of this. I don't
of the stride,
of the actual stride, because it's so reminiscent of the castle, and it's got these 2 enormous megalithic turrets that sit on top of it. And each of these turrets is just, the energy coming out of there is just unbelievable.
If you could Google it. So it's Robin Hood Stride and it's Derbyshire, just so you can get an image of it. But it is really extraordinary. And one thing I was going to add was that, of course, the rock art. As part of the rock art of the area, there's a snake.
There is a snake.
So you've got this sort of Neolithic Bronze Age site, and a snake is carved into the stone.
So just elaborating on this snake, a lady was talking to me. She saw me dowsing there one day. She goes, "Oh, have you found the serpent?" I said, "Well, yeah, this is what I'm actually dowsing at the moment." She goes, "No, no, no." She says, go around the back of the stride and have a look on the rock. Well, she took me round there in the end. And on one of the rocks, there's this head of this serpent that appears, it looks like it's been broken off.
Yeah.
But it's just such a clear indication as to what those guys knew what they were doing when they placed this, because I believe it was placed. There's no way it's just like perfect. It looks engineered, doesn't it? How the rocks are stacked.
I think, yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, I'd experienced the site, with my, acoustic recording head on, and I'd always thought it was very unusual, but I didn't necessarily think it was artificial. It was only until meeting Shaun and pointing out a number of different things, and then obviously learning about the energy lines running around there, I suddenly looked at it in a very different light. And yeah, it's an extraordinary structure, and it mirrors what's the structure behind the Druids in what's that called?
Rotor rocks.
Rotor rocks, which is another incredible structure in Derbyshire that, of course, we don't have a slide of, but if you Google it, the whole thing looks man-made, but these are thousands of tons worth of rock. It's absolutely extraordinary. I've just realised I've got these other two slides, which might expand on. Yeah.
So the first slide, where I'm sort of in the Hawaiian shirt with a glove on, waving this an Australian instrument called a bull roarer. And where I'm stood in front of this particular stone, it's actually echoing. Now, there's a lot of cut marks in the face of that stone.
Yeah.
And what we were originally finding is that these cut marks were actually in line with certain bands of energy. Not all of them, but a few of them were lining up with the energy bands.
Yeah.
And there must be, 6 or 7 of them on there?
There is, yeah.
Anyway, just after this shot was taken, Paul stood in front of the stone and was talking to me. And you said something in like a kind of an abrupt manner.
Well, I think I said something
that voice.
I didn't think the recording was working. I was sort of irritated because I think the technology that I brought along had sort of broken down. Not in any suspicious way, just me being, an amateur with that particular bit of tech. And I said it like that, and
all of a sudden my head starts ringing. It's like someone's just like struck the side of my head. It's like a bell, and I'm getting all this resonance and echoing in my ears, and it's actually intense. It's got quite confusing.
Yeah.
And I've said, whoa, Paul, just say exactly what you said in exactly the same manner just then. And he repeated it, and the same thing happened. I had this extreme,
just resonated.
Yeah. So I said, mate, you've got to stand where I'm stood now. And I started raising my voice at this stone. And sure enough, you were picking up on this same thing. And it's rather powerful, isn't it? It's like
it's incredible. And I suppose this is also one of the first occasions where, I can't remember if this was the first time that we met at that site or the second. I think it was the second, actually.
Yeah.
But then what I did was I recorded, obviously Shaun with the Australian what do you call it again?
Bull roarer.
The bull roarer. So in front of this, and obviously, again, these are large cut marks on this particular stone. And when I went back and looked at the wave files, there was a very clear difference between when he stood away from the stone and played, and then when he played in front of it. And when we think about, cut marks, for instance, in terms of, whether from an archaeological point of view or study or even amateur, or thinking about them from a ritual perspective, people think of them in all sorts of different ways. Things are placed in them, or, at one point, I think even Alfred Watkins was toying with the idea that heads would be placed in. Anyway, I read that somewhere, but probably not true. I've looked at his archive, but I couldn't find it there. So, but I think they have a resonant factor to them, and whether they're on the floor or whether they're upright. And certainly that day showed us quite a significant significant acoustic event, if you like, being produced by these stones.
I mean, well, how significant was this? Because we were then messing around with it
Oh
effectively.
yeah.
And well, Robin Hood strides what, 400 yards.
Yeah,
That
easily.
must be anything between 250 and 300 yards away.
Yeah.
Now we weren't shouting; it was just just raising our voices up at upper pitch.
Yeah.
And this older couple came down, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
And they said, "We've come down to see what all the noise was about. We heard you from over. We heard you talking from at the oak tree over there."
Yeah.
So this was in the same direction as Robin Hood's stride. So these sound waves are traveling, and actually that oak is only a few yards off of the main energy line that flows through.
That's right. Well. Yeah.
So does that acoustic travel down the line? That's another.
I think the other interesting thing that we found with this is that this particular stone, by the way, Nine Stone Close, if you've never been to Derbyshire to visit, is one of the most beautiful sites. It's amazing, and but this particular stone with its huge cut marks is facing outward, and I think it's positioned incorrectly. I think it should be facing inward, and it's operating like an amplifier. And just a quick anecdote. When I shared some of my recordings with an acoustics expert very early on, about a year into my project before I met Shaun, and I was saying, it's really strange. I said these, thinking about circles, maybe there's something about the way that the size of a stone, its contour, its shape are being purposefully put together in order to explore this acoustic environment or amplify this acoustic environment. And he said to me, he said, a speaker is round, obviously, and the stones could be seen as woofers and subwoofers. So when we think about an amplifier, it's got subwoofers and woofers in, and that's what gives you the volume and kind of range. And that's never it's never left me. I've always thought about that in relation to these sites. But that particular moment when that couple came over was really startling because we were not shouting and we weren't, even speaking abrupt. We talked about talking abruptly at the beginning. It was nothing like we were having a conversation around how surprising this was and what could it mean and all of these things. And that's what they heard all that way away. So very peculiar.
It was peculiar, wasn't it? But then sort of, well, I don't know, minutes later, wasn't it? That's when we began to get that shimmer and come through on the grass that afternoon, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah, that then led to this incredible shimmer. And I think that was the first meeting at the site. I think this was the second one, because this is also the one where Shaun made a comment about his Hawaiian shirt in the middle of our research. Do you remember the guy coming out of the woods? And he was dressed in sort of Hawaiian gear.
Yes, yeah.
It was really bizarre,
wasn't it? Yeah.
And he had his own instrument with him. He'd been sat on a rock in the woods. And when we told him what we were doing, he was really bowled over by it and said, "Oh, can I play?" And so he got his instrument, this sort of what was it, like a didgeridoo kind of thing?
Yeah, something like that.
Best way to describe it, yeah. And played it into the stone, and of course, guess what? That resonated again. So that was an amazing moment. But what about telling everybody about the apiary?
The Vimana. So the instruments on the slide on the right hand side is, but it's a piece of sheet metal about 2 mil thick, and you play it with a bow, or you can run a friction stick over the surface, and it creates a rather harrowing kind of noise.
Yeah.
It's quite haunting, isn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's amazing. Yeah.
Anyway, I've taken it into the West Kennet Long Barrow, and I began to play in there. And we had this camera recording, and all of a sudden these orbs start to, rise up. I
Mm.
mean, if you've ever been into the West Kennet Long Barrow, it's not really uncommon to see that sort of phenomena in
No,
there.
not at all. Yeah.
But the more I played, these orbs kind of entered this vortex,
Yeah.
and they began to get faster and faster and faster.
Mm.
Um, Eventually, we finished the recording. I mean, I can't really comment on how it felt in there, other than it just feels calm and nurturing in there all the time. I've
Yeah.
never felt uneasy in that place at all. It's a beautiful place
Well,
to spend time, isn't it?
traditionally you have if you go and a friend of mine has done this, if you go to West Kennet Barrow at night,
Hmm.
people sleep in there.
Yeah.
Of their own choice, by the way, not because they don't have a home to go to. So I think it's yeah, to draw in those energies. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, the Vimana, from what I picked up on that particular clip, was that these frequencies with these two instruments, well, particularly the Vimana, the energies were reacting
Yeah.
to the input I was putting in there,
Yeah.
and I found that absolutely, well, it was mind blowing.
Mm.
Now, the orb phenomena, there's a few theories I've got behind it. Um, I have recently come into contact with a non-tethered energy, which has kind of shifted my perspective as to what it could be. If I look on the more scientific side of it, I would potentially say it was a reaction of the negative ions, somehow the water becoming conscious, and reacting to the frequency of this thing.
But tell them where you found it, because that's extraordinary as well.
Where I found what
The untethered energy.
oh, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's so I've basically been doing some work with the Lea Hurst estate here in Derbyshire. For those of you who aren't aware, Lea Hurst is the childhood home of Florence Nightingale, and the owner of the property, well, some friends of mine are very good friends with him, and they asked me to go around a few. Well, in fact, Alex, it was literally after I put the phone down from being on the call with you. Phone went again, and they said, "Oh, what are you up to? Can you come over? I've got someone here who wants to meet you." So ended up going over to Lea Hurst, and this guy wanted me to see what energies were around the property, and we got up onto the third floor, and we went into what was Florence Nightingale's childhood bedroom. And anyway, I located a vortex within the room, very close to the window, and there was a radiator quite close to it. So I was initially thinking it's potentially water pipes.
Mm.
So I went downstairs and saw to the room below to find it, see if it was coming up from the earth, and it wasn't. So I sort of said, "Oh, I think we've picked up on radiator pipes, but we'll head back up anyway." Went into the room again. At this time, there was nothing there. So we're thinking, well, what's going on here? And I began to do a few more passes around the room again, and I picked it up in a different location, about 2 meters away. And I continued to douse, and as I was dowsing it, it was shifting around the bedroom, and the temperature just completely dropped in
Mm.
that room. One of the girls who was with her, the hackles went up on the back of her neck, and she wanted to leave. It made her feel rather uneasy. Myself, I was just absolutely blown away by this. It was a really incredible experience. I don't know what it was. I refer to it as a non-tethered energy, being the fact it's not static or like an energy line. I know energy lines do shift side to side, but I've never seen anything behave in such a manner like that. So it was a very interesting.
I think also what's interesting about what Sean's describing there is he's not using the word ghost. So he's thinking about that as a form of energy that's
Yeah,
in
it's
this
something
place.
that's
Yeah.
it's a ball or something like that you could describe as just yeah, just
Yeah.
moving around. No, it's absolutely fascinating. So, I mean, whether it was reacting to the five people that was in that room at the time, or whether it was
Mm.
just on its own, minding its own business, but it certainly reacted when we went back again and we had that initial temperature drop.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we're
Incredible.
getting sidetracked a little bit
Don't
there.
worry. So what we're going to do now is we'll just quickly talk about one of the projects. So this is working at Nine Ladies. I don't know what that is there. What's this? Oh, well.
Oh,
Working at Nine Ladies, which is obviously a site again in Derbyshire. We're concentrating a lot of what we're doing at the moment in Derbyshire, although we've got this big project which we've got at the end, which we'll talk about.
mm.
And so what we did was basically the drawing that you can see in the center is something that Shaun put together quite a while ago.
Well, that would have been yeah, it would have been around the 30th of June 2022 when I first sketched that.
Yeah,
That's basically what I thought I was picking up on
yeah.
the very first day I went and dowsed a stone circle. Um, the pendulum rotated clockwise on one side of the energy center, or this black center in the middle. I
Mm,
didn't know what an energy center was at the time, and it swung anti-clockwise on the other side.
yeah.
Um, the Between the stones, I found this is where the dowsing rods crossed, and when I held the pendulum between the stones, instead of spinning, it was just swinging left to right. So I had this thought come into my mind that
Mm,
this had two of these coils going up and then sort of made this umbrella
yeah.
of energy that fell back down between the stones. Like I said, I didn't understand what it was I'd found, but
Mm,
this was the image that sort of came to me. Well, fast forward 3 summers later, um, and began to find this. Let's talk about the image on the left-hand side of the screen. So one summer's evening, we went up to the stones and decided to map out the somatic pattern, the
mm,
vortex, the radials, and this outer band of energy around the stones. We've left the initial energy line out, and this is what's happening within the stones. So let's talk about the outside. We seem to have this band of energy that's rotating around. It does fluctuate. It can go clockwise, anti-clockwise, depending on various times of the day. We then have from each stone a radial going into the center. I have since picked up another radial. There's a huge gap sort of at the bottom
mm.
between the two stones. There is another radial that's coming in
Yeah,
there. So
I
whether
believe
or
that.
not that's
Mm,
potentially a location of another stone, I'd have to look for a small vortex over the stone.
yeah.
Um, but these radials appear to be tethered to this vortex that's emitting from the center. So I've sort of partially uh, strung up the vortex, if
Mm,
you like. We mapped that out with some string, and that's roughly three sorry three coils wide in the stone circle, isn't it? It coils
Yeah,
around
that's
three
right. Yeah,
times to the edge
yeah,
and then extends further out
yeah.
of the circle. And then finally, we've got this flower-shaped somatic that's appearing
Mm.
in the center there. Um, and again, the first time I found this, it was just the slightest of knocks on the dowsing rod. And as I followed that to the left,
Yeah.
the dowsing rod just pulled dramatically round and created this huge elliptical um, flower petal. And as I tracked it back to the middle, I found a second. And then I've decided to have a look to the north and north and south, and the same pattern was manifesting on that side as well. Um, so I was like, well, what is this? What does this mean? And at the time, I didn't realize it was anything to do with vibration or anything like that. It was like this dowsing anomaly, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, it's extraordinary. I think one of the other things as well, you'll see the images of the hands and the after and before and things like that. There's a reason for that. Uh, I was told by Shaun that there was supposed to be a dead zone
Hmm.
of energy in the center.
That's right in the center where everything joins
Yeah.
in. There's just nothing there. It's just like everything just collapses. There's just
So
space.
I couldn't resist, and I stood in the center. And my hands started heating up quite dramatically. So they were warming. And it felt like somebody was putting a glove on both hands. And this was increasing and increasing and increasing. And and I said to Shaun, you've got to come over and try this. You know, something's happening in the center. And as Shaun came over, without realizing it, I opened up my hands to have a look at them, and it was as if I had grabbed hold of nettles. So you can't see it very well in the photographs, but there were obviously, white, blood. The whenever you grab something tight, you'll get these dots. I can't think of there is a name for it, by the way, but I can't
It's like
think of it.
water makeup in your hand.
Yeah. And basically, then I got Shaun to do it, and it happened to him. And it's kind of been happening ever since, really. Every time that we've gone to placed ourselves in say the center of an ancient site. I did it once. It was the week after this. I was in Dartmoor, and I went to Fernworthy Stone Circle, and I didn't have any rods or any recording equipment, but I could feel the energy tingling. And this is the other thing, it's kind of like this electricity on the palm of your hands.
Piezoelectricity, isn't it?
Piezoelectricity, yeah, coming on the surface. And as I put my hand over one of the stones where it was at its most intense, that effect happened again. So, in other words, my hand warmed up very significantly. And then as I looked at my hand, I had these kind of white dots all over it. So Nine Ladies is a very popular site. So it's quite difficult for us to be researching that, particularly on dark nights like tonight. But we're hoping as it gets lighter to get there where it's a bit quiet and things like that. So that's an image at the bottom of us working there. But I'm going to flick through some slides now because I'm aware of the time. So this is what's that? We don't allow. So this is a sort of illustration of some of the things that we've been doing, which is kind of working with recording energy lines and then sort of trying to alter energy lines and things like that. And so what would happen is that Shaun would douse a line, but then he wouldn't be able to douse a line after something that we'd done. And then I would obviously be recording at the time. Well, of course, when I go back and analyze the audio, guess what? There's a difference between the two moments, if you like.
Yeah.
A lot of this is very experimental. It's linked to a PhD that I'm doing with Birkbeck University, and also some papers that myself and Shaun are authoring. We're hopefully going to do one for University of Worcester that's coming up with this, but we're basically experimenting, and nothing that's happening at the moment is completely conclusive. But all I can say is that we've definitely recorded energy lines. There's no ambiguity about it. And we've recorded changes
Yeah.
to those. So that's really, for me, that's the most dramatic thing out of this project. But anyway, skip forward. So one of the things that we've been doing is obviously disseminating this work, which, as I said, is kind of this relationship between energy lines and acoustic resonance, trying to look at, yes, finding these semantics, but can we record? Does that have an acoustic signature to it? And also trying to think about all sorts of other related kind of things, like, for instance, the cut marks and their purpose. And also, is rock art topographic mapping rather than just playful kind of symbolism and things like that? Anyway, the images that I've got there, which are the digital images, are that there's an immersive technology project that I'm slowly working with some technical assistants at the university, which is, can we create that semantic pattern in a way that makes it digital and accessible and explores that. So it's very tentative at the moment, but that gives you some of the idea of what we're doing. These are three-dimensional scans of the entire site. And there's just some illustrations. We're in the second issue of Ancient Times magazine, which is produced by Stone Club. That's it. That's what I was trying to remember. So yeah, whoops. It's all animated. I didn't realize that, actually. Sorry. There we are. Oh, a bit of excitement. There we go. Oh, there we go. Sorry. There we are. So you can get an idea of what it was doing. Yeah, I didn't realize they played, actually, and I put this together. There we go. So this is the sort of thing that we're doing, is kind of, place it. The idea is that the viewer places themselves in this virtual circle, so you could watch it from all over the world with that. There's some fantastic researchers at Salford that are doing amazing things with things like there's a big project that's going on at the moment. One of the people in my team at Easter Island, which is about the death of native languages. And anyways, working like that. So there's lots of people that are kind of interested in what we're doing and always stop me in the corridor and say, "How's it going? And what's the latest, thing that you've discovered?" But anyway, you get an idea with that. So this project is not just related to Derbyshire, and it's not just related to the British Isles. In the summer, I had the pleasure of going and seeing Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe. And what's fascinating about these sites is that they are supposed to be late Stone Age in terms of their carbon dating. And late Stone Age, we were hunter-gatherers. We weren't supposedly, we weren't monument makers. But these sites are around about something between 12 and 14,000 years old. So they predate significantly Stonehenge and Avebury and all sorts of things. And this is a sort of archaeological wonder of our times, really. Göbekli Tepe, which is the image on the right, is 21 football pitches in size. So they've only just opened up one of these sites with this. And it's quite touristy. The Turkish government are determined to make profit out of it, knowing that it's the earliest Mesolithic site in the world. And it is unbelievable. It's incredible. There's what you have are these T-shaped pillars. And basically that T-shape, of course, reappears all the way through history. We see it in Sumerian art, we see it in Egyptian art, and you could argue that the Christian crucifix is really a T-shape with another bit on the top. So there's a fascinating kind of narrative that's coming out of these discoveries. And Karahan, which is very different, it was just an archaeological site. I managed to get a guide took me there, a taxi driver, and I was able to get up really close to the site. This is one of the most famous. It's called the Snakehead, and these are these phallic stones which are in the center of this what is a pool, effectively. So you can see that something was poured into it. It's extraordinary. But you see the same art, turning up in Cambodia, Turkey. You see it in Native American art. In Canada, you have the Native American wheel structures. And anyway, so there's lots of kind of commonality across the globe, which is very strange, with what they think is this ancient civilization. That these sites were buried, by the way. So they were buried for 9,000 years and accidentally discovered. Göbekli Tepe was discovered by a farmer. This was his land, sorry, and he saw something poking up
Does
out of the surface.
make you wonder if they were potentially shut down.
Yeah,
So
I think they were, because I was going to say, to bring us back to dowsing, even though it's great to be talking about these as kind of architectural and archaeological wonders. But I took some rods too, and also some recording equipment. I did a seismic recording from Göbekli Tepe as close as I could get to the site with that. And it's not conclusive because there were all sorts of other things going on around there, lots of people and stuff like that. But I actually took the rods, and I was able to, I was stopped by security, by the way, after about 20 minutes of doing this. But I was using my rods and walking around the perimeter. And what kept happening was that helicopter motion that I talked about, that I'd experienced with the dowser at Mary Maidens. And as I said, I'm an amateur. I just have I've clearly got some sort of relationship with this, but it's nothing like yourselves or Shaun. So
everybody has a dowsing tool.
But I have a dowsing tool, absolutely. But when I got to Karahan, I was able to get very close to these sites. And what came out of that was that this vortex that was going on with the rods was going on all over that site. So I experienced it at Göbekli Tepe. And Tepe, by the way, is hill. That's what it means. And these are monuments on the hill, on these hills. And at Karahan, it was just off the charts. It was all over this vortex, spinning, spinning, spinning. And also lines, as I followed energy lines, there were two monuments there that were left by the Romans that are still there today, that were directly on these lines that I found. Anyway, I thought I'd include this because part of our sort of future planning in terms of where this project goes is to try to get an AHRC grant, which is it's a sort of educational funding, a large scale educational funding, anything from £100,000 up to around about sort of 20 million, I think, something like that. Anyway, an extraordinary figure to obviously do this, across the globe and to work on it. So that's why I've included this, just to say that we are thinking about that. I started, so here's where some images, some video comes in terms of the sounds that I've been talking about. This is the first experience that I had, and this is the recording. So you can see the fog. I wasn't lying. That's looking at the entrance of Swinside Sunken Kirk. So I'm sat on the stone and I'm recording from this, and you'll hear these thumps. So I will, hopefully this is going to work. So let me know if you can't hear the audio, by the way. I think I've got it set up. Oops, I know I've lost it. There it is. So it's like pebbles and, I don't know how else to describe it. Somebody knocking with maybe a bit of wood on the stones. And that's exactly what it was like. It like hooves, like clock, 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 that kind of thing. And they have no rhythm to them as such. So it's not like I was hearing a distant clatter, say, of a horse rider or whatever it might be. And whilst this experience was really extraordinary, of course, I doubted myself, as you do, when you have an experience that could be, at the time, I suppose I called it paranormal. But then it was the recording at other sites that then made sense. It started to kind of make sense with it. Whoops, sorry. So I returned to Swinside about a year and a half later with some slightly more expensive kit. And what happened there was I returned to Swinside quite a bit, obviously, to record the stones and now energy, thinking about energy lines and also trying to get these ambient knocks as well. So This comes from the entrance to of Swinside. And I was saying to Shaun, I went there without Shaun, but I was doing some dowsing, and I found this perimeter line which lines up perfectly with the stones, with the linear structure of the stones, the circular structure, sorry, of the stones. And I was actually, what I didn't realize was that a year or so before then, I actually had the microphones on that line. So what you're going to hear is from the entrance, and these are with very powerful ambient microphones, and you'll start to hear some clicks, as well as all the other, kind of stuff that's going on. And that's it. So those kind of, again, those kind of stone taps that you're hearing, the singular stone taps and the clack clack, and it's as if they were beside me when I was recording. Very strange. So that's just a compilation of audio that was probably about 45 minutes long, and then I would have three instances of that within the 45 minutes. Whoops. So this brings us on to what I was talking about with the dowser, the Merry Maidens. And so we'll start with that. And then I've got a story to tell about, obviously, the other audio. So when the dowser, we had a lovely conversation. He said to me, I've picked up these, I watched him, and the rods were going like helicopters again. And that happened twice. And he said, "Do you want to go?" And I said, "Oh, I'm not really. This isn't like you're an expert." He said, "No, no, no. Come on, you have a go." And as I followed him in terms of the route he took, it happened the same thing for me. So I was really, when you do that, all of us can remember that first moment, when you're dowsing and something happens and you go, "I'm not making the rods do this." That was me, right? And anyway, we exchanged details, as I said, and he left. And I made sure that he disappeared. I don't know why, but I wanted to make sure that he'd gone. I didn't want him to know that I was about to record what he'd found. So what I did was I did a recording from the stones on one of those lines facing each other. And this is one of those stones. But the other stone that was facing this stone that we're going to hear was doing exactly the same thing. So what you're going to hear is like an engine rev sound. There we go. Yeah, I don't, it's very strange. It's like there's two kind of going on in there. So, so that was fascinating, and I was completely blown away by it. The film that you can see, but I mentioned I'm a filmmaker now. I make films. That's a film of the Merry Maidens that I did, which is called Dawn's Main, and I was using the soundtrack is made up of the recordings. But anyway, zip forward a year later, and I've met Shaun, and Shaun couldn't make a particular Saturday or something at Nine Stone Close, and I said to Shaun, "Well, I'm going to go anyway, and I want to record where we'd been the week before." We were talking about, the cut marks and all of that kind of stuff, and I thought, well, I'm going to record these stones following Shaun's, energy line route that he's shown me. And I, with again, the amateur with my rods, I was finding it. Okay, this is definitely it. I set all my microphones up and sat under a tree, just left them recording. What happened then was that somebody came and was obviously visiting the site, a person called Jamie Joy, who I now sort of in contact with on social media, like you do when you meet people and you swap your details. She was a photographer of Reuters, but she loved ancient monuments and, of course, loved the story of what we were doing with what asked me why I was making the recording. And she said, "Is it okay if I listen to the Stones?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, no problem." So I put the headphones on her and I stood away and she listened for about 5 minutes and she took the headphones off. And I said, "Oh, so what did you think?" Like that. She goes, "That was amazing." She said it was like it was kind of, talking to me or something, just kind of describing it in a kind of very weird sort of way. So I said, "Well, that's interesting, with this." Anyway, I was packing up and I wanted to share with Shaun the work I was doing that day. And I found this recording. And I was so excited. This is the iPhone film that I shot and then sent it to Shaun and said, "Oh my God," and said, "Look, this is the same as the Merry Maiden." So here we are, a year apart, 300 odd miles apart, very different landscapes. And this happens. Hang on a minute. Whoops, if I can get my. So, very, yeah, like one of those rattlers that you'd have at a football match in the 1970s with that. So that's coming from the stone. If you look at the image at the bottom, it's the far left. So it's that stone. And it's a recording I'm making from the base of the stone. I'd mentioned I started out with some very basic equipment from where did I buy it from? Amazon or something that you can stick on your guitars and things like that. I calculated the other day, which might, sort of illustrate the obsessiveness that I've got with this. I calculated I've spent nearly £10,000 on recording equipment since then. So there you go, more fool me over three years. Anyway, whoops. The final bit of audio before we give you the latest of what we're doing comes from Avebury, and this is the cove at Avebury. It's a beautiful. What they believe it was there was a third stone, and I think it's the idea that it was this sort of cove kind of area. Now, I did this in May of 2023, and the Swinside experience was January the 28th, 2023. So hopefully you can see how fast I was sort of trying to run around the country, trying to hear, all this stuff. So on this particular occasion, I asked a friend to help me record. And we were doing contact mics, or on the Stones, and I did some ambient kind of stuff, but nothing really that significant. And the sound from this recording is just mind-blowing. It's crazy. So I'm going to play this. It's quite loud. So if you've got your volume right up, you may want to temper that a little bit. But this is quite extraordinary. And it's probably one of the most figurative sounds I've ever recorded. And you'll hear why in a moment. Now, the important thing about this is there's several kind of things going on. So it's like there's stack sounds with this, as if other things are coming in to the main bit. You can hear at the beginning there's like what sounds like a heartbeat. That's from my hand with that, but then it goes because I cut that out. And then what you've got is this, like we say, this kind of grinding, kind of sound. And when I met Shaun, we got talking. I learned obviously a great deal about the major lines running through the south, for instance. And of course, it's at the cove where the Michael and Mary cross.
Very well, they're in very close proximity
Yeah.
there. Yeah. So there's well, the if you look at, I'm not 100% sure about the cove myself, but
Mm.
I do know at the Devil's Chair, on the
Oh
far
yeah,
southern
yeah,
side,
yeah,
there's faults that run through there. So that would
yeah,
explain some
yeah.
of those noises if it was on fault. So whether or not there are faults there,
Exactly there, or it's being picked up,
mhm,
yeah, from down. But something's going on in
something,
terms of
yeah.
that. It's very, very strange. We're going to finish off with whoops, the last slide, and which is very exciting. So through Shaun, actually, you got to meet a chance
Yeah,
encounter.
really a chance encounter. One day in April last year with the wardens at the Rollright Stones. They had a little sign out, come and douse. So I said, "Oh, you guys are dowsers. I'm a dowser myself," and really just got talking and have
Mm,
made some fantastic friends down there. Um, and I started to tell them about the project me and Paul uh, basically investigating at the moment. This would have been August. They had their open
that's
day in
right. Yeah.
August, and I got chatting to a chap called George Lambrick, and he's the chair of the Rollright Trust.
But he's also the former head of archaeology at University of Oxford.
Hmm.
So yeah, very important.
A very important guy, and he
Mm,
was. I mean, at the time, I didn't know who I was talking to. He's just very interested in what I was doing and showing people various areas around the site where we were basically finding these energy centers.
mm,
And I was doing the kinesiology test where you push down on the arm, and the arms just drop to the side over these particular
mm.
centers. And yeah, George was quite taken aback by it, and he had a go at dowsing himself, and he said, "Well, hang on, I didn't do this," and got
Mm.
talking about the project between me and Paul, and we've basically been given a fantastic opportunity
Yeah.
to take the project there between March and
It's
June, isn't it?
March and May officially, but we can adjust those dates. And
Mm.
basically, it was an invitation from the Rollright Trust. Obviously, Shaun had done a good sales pitch about what we were doing, and they got very excited about it. But we had to also go through historic England.
Yes, yeah.
And so that was quite a lot of paperwork. It's a 40-page document that I had to produce for this.
Because we needed what was the title of the license? An S42.
Yeah, an S42, you have to have an S42 license to be doing anything there. Even though it's not metal detecting or an archaeological dig, it's very non-invasive, the type of work that we do with the acoustic, material.
Mm.
You've still got to have an S42. And you then need to also put in so as well as doing that, you've got to then put in a process document, basically, which is the 40-page document that has health and safety, all sorts of stuff in there.
Yeah.
And we got it through. And one of the most amazing things, and it's particularly useful for this group, is that dowsing uh, in that document is seen as a legitimate form of research. It's all over the document. Yes, there's archaeoacoustics work that I'm contributing and recording and things like that. But basically, it's about dowsing and energy lines. And it's probably one of the first since the Dragon project. It's, I suppose, one of the first kind of big projects there that has got to be linked to an outcome. We're potentially getting a small amount of money, which is going to be £10,000. Well, that's not very small, is it? But you know what I mean. But about £10,000 seed funding for this. But then that is to lead into a £100,000 bid that we would be doing afterwards. So once we've got the evidence that we're going to gather with this. Now, this is very much leading off from the Dragon project. So the work that Paul Devereux did. Oh, so it's leading off from the Dragon project. We've been in touch with Paul Devereux. I contacted Paul Devereux in the past before I met Shaun, and then whilst we were doing this project. So I've asked about basically looking at the archive and exploring that. But it also brings in, the work of, for instance, Hamish Miller and Paul Broadhurst and all, that's kind of tied into this as well, and was also quoted in our pitch for the research with this. But yeah, tremendously exciting. We'll see where this goes. We're looking to obviously map the roll rights, and then the idea is to have an acoustic record of that energy structure that's there. But anyway, I'll stop sharing. I know that we've probably gone on, whoops, for quite a bit. Hang on a minute. Can we stop sharing? How do I stop sharing?
Stop sharing.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Wow. Thank you. That's so much there. And
yeah, sorry about that.
oh, not in a bad way. It's like to hear the sound that you've been recording with really highly sensitive equipment of the energy lines from the stones and the different quality and nature of those sounds.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
We've had quite an active chat going on in the background. Maybe we could start with that and then open up into some questions. I'm just going to scroll up a bit because people were feeding back on some of the different sounds, and some of the pictures that you were sharing. And I think, Paul, you've got your hand up because you had a few, you very kindly shared some sort of OS map versions at the beginning about the Robin Hood stride and the 9 ladies don't circle, so people could get a bit of a visual. And then you were saying stuff. Do you want to sort of share out your questions, Paul?
Let's not worry about the pictures that I sent out showing where the locations are. Great locations. Congratulations to you on your briefs. Much improved since the last time that I saw them. Really good. Really good. Really good. There's a couple of things that I want you to say, first of all. First of all, I want you to reassure people that the sounds that they are hearing are not normal background sounds.
Yeah.
Is that all you're going to say? They're not normal background sounds, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, we obviously we measure the sounds as well, and we can obviously place those sounds. And there's a huge difference between, for instance, the not just the seismic sounds that we're hearing, but the clicks of Swinside, for instance. And what's interesting about those clicks, and I've recorded these clicks and knocks all over the country. The last time was in Avebury towards the end of last year. And they come out at about 1,500 hertz, always. They're around about 1,500. What that means, I don't know, but that's part of our research. But yeah, no, thanks for that.
No, that's really good, because I've got a follow-on to that one directly. Have you tried asking yes-no questions in that situation, indicating that one click is yes, two clicks are no? Because that would be a real cool thing if you actually did that.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, I've not done those sort of recordings with Shaun. So they're recordings that I've done on my own. as I said, kind of by accident, and then after the fact, had found that I was actually sat on an energy line. In fact, Farley Moore, when I met Shaun, I was telling him very excitedly, which I had done. I'd picked up these knocks, and what I realized was when I watched Shaun douse that I was actually placing the directional microphone on an energy line that was kind of coming out like this. I can't describe it, but kind of a ripple effect or whatever.
So what you're saying is, if we could try and
Communicate.
with the site, yeah,
Yeah.
Well, you're talking about consciousness,
Yeah.
and I heard a great podcast that I will put the link to in the chat later, that really sums up the way that I feel about consciousness and the
Yeah.
way that it can be experienced. And this is from quite a reputable guy who's done some work, and I think that this is the way to go. But I've got a supplementary very quickly to what you were talking about, because there's a lot of people here that know the Cove very, very well, and like me, have probably had weird experiences there. Where exactly did you position the microphone at the point where you took that record?
Okay, so you know the large stone of the cove, which
On the right?
it's the one on the right. It's the one of the largest stones in Europe, because it goes down, I believe, around about 21 feet. That's what I've been told. So why it's so far down like that, or why it's that size and buried, I don't know. But I remember finding that out after the fact. So the actual location of the microphone, so it's a contact microphone. It was
Is that onto the stone itself or into the ground?
That's onto the stone itself.
Thank you.
That's onto the stone itself, and that would be sort of to the left of center. That's the best way I could describe it. It was quite a while ago, and I wasn't making the sort of records that I make now. Obviously, that was 2023. So
Great. This is my final question now, and other people must ask. Okay, and this is the most important one, because the last time you gave this brief, you gave us instructions on how to set our audio and how to listen with earphones, which is very important to make sure that you get the benefits from this.
Yeah.
So would you like to amplify that and tell people how to get the very best from this? Because this has been recorded and people need to be able to pick up these sounds in as pristine a manner as possible.
Yeah, I would say definitely, if you're listening to the recording, listening back on the recording, or anybody that wasn't able to make the meeting, is definitely wear headphones for this, because it's incredibly intimate sounds, really. These, I would say, as well. It's quite amazing to obviously be out in the field, and Shaun's obviously heard these sounds, and it's very strange. You get separated from the world around you, with them.
You have a massive amount of support for this. And next question, please.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I was going to say, Jane messaged when you were talking about when you were in the Nine Maidens site, and that with the
Merry Maidens, is that right? Or
no, the one up in Derbyshire.
Nine Maidens, yeah.
Yes, and Jane said that when there were some people that heard you from ages away, and it was acoustically fascinating how it carried like that. Jane said that there's the same amplification effect with certain frequencies singing inside the hollowed out dwarfy stone in the Orkneys.
Oh, wow.
It's amazing to experience. People outside remarked how the volume suddenly went up massively at a certain tone, and Jane was doing scales to find it. So, that's
interesting.
Yeah, thank you, Jane, for that. I think Jane also mentioned some stuff lower down. I'm just quickly scanning through. And Harry Nixon, thank you, Harry, for saying about the before and after hands.
Oh, yeah.
You were sharing when you were standing almost in that 0 point center of the vortex. Blotchy skin like that is quite common in Tai Chi. It's called Wei Chi, defensive Chi. And in traditional Chinese medicine refers to a protective energy circulating outside blood vessels, acting as an immune system, regulating temperature, and defending against external pathogens.
Wow.
Mm.
Okay. Amazing.
So yeah, that was really interesting. Thank you, Harry. And
Yeah.
Brenda,
Yeah.
who's in Canada, she was saying when you were playing the Avebury Cove one, I think it was, it's like hearing the music of plants, and
Yeah.
it sounds similar. It
Yeah.
really, yeah. And
No, I know what it means. Yeah.
yeah, and because and I wonder with your, let's say acoustic um colleagues who might be a bit sniffy about certain things. Actually, you can see stuff on TV coming out now, can't you, about people recording, or videos about people recording the sound of plants, or even the mycelial network and things
That's
like
right.
that. So
Yeah.
it's not untrodden territory, surely, from that
No,
point.
is it the person, by the way, I was referring to, I'm going to name them, is Dr. Trevor Cox. But Trevor is amazing. He did a archaeoacoustics, very famous archaeoacoustics experiment at Stonehenge, where they projected sound against the stones and therefore came up with a theory about why it was constructed in the way that it was, rather like a cathedral to amplify sound. So that's Dr. Trevor Cox, but don't buy his books. There we are.
Thank you for that context. That's fascinating. Thomas was saying that the sound like the new Spielberg movie that's coming out this June, and
How funny. Yeah, a friend of mine sort of he's quite sarcastic and he sent me a link and said, I think they've sussed you out. But anyway, I haven't heard it yet.
I
So
haven't yet, but yeah. And Stuart Dow, when you were playing the sound from was it the Merry Maidens one? I
yeah,
think it was.
yeah.
And no, it was Avebury, wasn't it, Stu? About it feeling like the Michael line.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because Stu's done a lot of dowsing on the Michael and Mary energy lines, and
Right.
it's obviously travels through Avebury as well. But um, our last speaker, Jolie Rose, was talking about a pilgrimage with the Michael and Mary lines across
Yeah.
across the country, and also the Belinus line north south, spine of Albion.
Mm,
And she was talking about the qualities of how it feels to walk on the Michael line,
yeah.
and how it feels to be, in close connection with the Mary line, and how different they are in their qualities. But I don't know, Stu, if you're there, but it would be interesting to hear if you've got a question or comment about that. Um,
I'm unmuted now.
oh, great. Hi,
My
Stu.
apologies. My apologies. Yes, the moment I heard that sound, I'm thinking that's Michael.
Oh really?
Right, okay.
Yeah.
The way the sound was constructed in its, I don't know,
Layer as if it was layers. Yeah.
yeah, in those layers and the tone of those layers, or
Yeah.
just everything about it visually, it was to me it was Michael, not Mary, and I was fascinated to hear where you'd actually put your microphone. So
Yeah.
I'd love to know more on that point.
Yeah. I think also I talked about the positioning of the microphone. I suppose it's important also to re-emphasize that was around about mid-May. So in terms of a seasonal aspect of it, which I think is important to note as well.
Yes, the sounds might change according to
Yeah.
the a lot that's going on, whether it's the weather, the moon's position. There's a
Yeah.
huge amount of variables involved. So yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
document,
Drift of the line, sort of thing.
document everything you can, and thank you. Your work's wonderful.
Thanks very much.
Thank you ever so much.
Right.
Thank you. And Pam Hatton, you said something about in one of the stones. Was it on the cove ones in Avebury, some kind of animal that you could see? There's some sort of lizard type animal, and it sounded a bit like there was a lizard animal on the shape. I think it was on the right big stone. Um,
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, yes, it was. I At first I thought it sounded a bit like cows.
mm,
Cows can get excited in the field and they make this funny sound. But then I thought, no, it's more lizardy. And I looked at the stone and you can see the picture like a lizard or some kind of strange creature in the
mm.
stone.
Wow.
And the story about Harry Oldfield at rollright stones with the dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you ask for permission to enter the sites or anything like that when you go, or do you just stomp in with your equipment?
No, every time I
Yeah.
douse, ultimately you have to ask for permission and protection, because if you don't, you're at full exposure to God knows what. I don't know what some of these energies are. I don't know what these energies are at the end of the day. I don't think no one really does. And you can open yourself up to harm. I've had it myself.
You have,
yeah,
you
I've
said,
been
you were
burned
burnt.
down the side of my face and
Yeah.
things like that. So
Well, we both felt sick. I mean, and tiredness, and we were doing when we were mapping the 9 ladies. I got very ill actually, and it was only until we moved out of the circle that I felt okay. One of the things I saw, Alan from Devon popped up, and he was asking about beyond human hearing. So that's a really interesting question, partly because I'm waiting for an ultrasonic microphone to come from New York at the moment, which is up to 70,000 hertz in terms of recording. But what I do tend to do is I'll record when I'm doing those ambient recordings. They're at what's called 192 hertz, which is the widest possible range, which picks up infrasound. If you're recording with your phone, you can pick up infrasound using an iPhone. It's actually set to that. But what I do is I do 192 hertz, and then that picks up forms of infrasound. So when I'm recording at the entrance of the Swinside, I can't hear those clicks. By the way, that's only when I go back and I'm with the recordings. And just a quick point on that as well is that these recordings are made across all sorts of different recorders. So it isn't about faults in technology or a poor microphone, or I use microphones that are £500 directional microphones, and then microphones that are 50 quid or £10 or whatever it might be. And it's happened across all of those. So.
Well, Paul was on about are they just something about background sounds?
Yeah.
They are background sounds really, but it's like plants. You've got to be in like they're sort of outside our normal hearing range, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
You only hear them like plants, you only hear them when you're in that sort of special altered state, in a way, a meditative state.
Definitely.
And so these sounds must be happening all the time in all kinds of places. It's just that we don't normally hear them.
Yeah, all the time. Definitely.
That's fascinating.
Fascinating.
Thanks, Pam. I was just going to read out, I can see your hand up, Sue. Thanks very much. I'm just going to read out another message. Dawn Kirkham, thank you, Dawn, for messaging. I don't know if you're here. I've just catching up with all the messages during your talk. She's asked, is there some sort of database that you can compare a sound with to rule out anything natural, as in sort of birdsong or, rustle of leaves and wind?
You do. It's not so much a database of sounds, but it's based on hertz. So in terms of the range and the volume of a sound, and most birdsong can be measured at particular hertz and also subsonic sounds as well. Obviously, when you're doing a seismic recording, you're picking up earth sounds. So those are movements within the earth. The reason why I said when I quickly showed that slide is that I feel that we've recorded an earth energy line is because we've changed it, and we've recorded the change in audio. So therefore, the recording before the change is the earth energy line as is, and then there's the change in the line. So in terms of ambient sounds, for instance, there's a particular hertz that one can apply to various to bird song, and particularly birds within a particular region or location, for instance. So that's how that's how I've ended up separating out those sounds, is looking at it from a, yeah, I suppose physics point of view, is you're measuring rather than thinking, okay, that sounds like a cricket or whatever it might be.
Another thing I'd just like to add is obviously we're out recording neutral sounds on Sunday,
Yes, yeah,
and they generally it's silent, isn't it? When you've got the seismic mics in the ground on neutral ground, there's just no activity. You may get the slightest of knocks, but it's so much to go from an energy center or a stone to completely neutral ground. It's chalk and cheese, isn't it? It really is. There's so much activity around these sites coming through the seismic mics.
Definitely. It's a very good point. It's the first experiment that we've really done in terms of what you might call a non-energy center, an ordinary space or a neutral space. And Shaun's right, it's quiet. So you get occasional peaks, and that's about it. When you're recording an energy line, it's busy.
It's chaotic, isn't it?
And it has a very noisy bass line. And that's really what you're measuring. So it's not like the thumps, bump, 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 things like that. You're actually measuring the bass line and the decibels of that, or the frequency, sorry, of that. And what happens is when you change an energy line, the frequency will go up on that bass line. So a lot of it is, we're measuring on that basis. I'm actually employing at different points AI to kind of assist with some of that, just because of the knowledge around this is it's very difficult to kind of, it would take me 10 years to do things sometimes that I do within 30 seconds in order to make kind of a review. But there I know AI is evil, but it does serve a purpose.
It's got its uses.
It's got its uses. There we are. Yeah.
That's
really
fantastic. Yeah,
I was just say that's really helpful, that distinction between kind of a neutral site and an active site. I think there's that adds an awful lot of weight to it. I think you're onto something here, guys, and I hope that you continue with your work. It's fascinating.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks.
And thanks, Dawn. You also suggested that, Paul and Shaun might want to do a presentation on your research at the British Society of Dowsing conference in September. So there might be, because it might be good timing depending on but how fascinating to actually be recording Earth energy lines, and also the difference when we interact with them as well.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that we're testing at the moment, so I can give you some hot off the press, is Shaun does a motion, which is a powering up. So trying to power the line.
Is this the whooshing? Is this the whooshing?
Yeah, this is the whoosh. Yeah. So what we do, so in previous times we've tried recording that, and I've always said to Shaun that there's a whoosh, that you can hear this sort of, on the which you shouldn't. From a seismic microphone, you should only really be recording what's going on there. So for instance, you might hear by accident, feet moving, or even the voice resonates, but you shouldn't really hear
you can't hear anything in the air.
You shouldn't hear anything in the air. It's about sound that hits the ground.
And I'm at least 2 feet, 3 feet away.
Yeah, well, 3 feet. Yeah, the latest recording that I'm analyzing at the moment has actually, which is we put 3 microphones in the ground, and they're all of the same quality. They're scientific instruments, basically, to measure seismic vibration. And the analysis that I've done, the initial analysis, I sent it to Shaun, and guess what? We've got changes in the wave pattern at the points where Shaun powered up, and then powered down. And you can see the waveform go, what, really excited. That's in its very early stages. Shaun was laughing because I made him stand on a towel because we were trying to stop vibrations from any movement obviously in your feet will translate as audio, and it could reverberate. So we're trying to be very, very careful. I mean, ideally, he should be just hovering, but anyway, we can't do that. So we're trying to, I'm putting him onto a tea towel and he's doing the powering up from there. But the latest, I put an analysis through using an AI tool, and Shaun had done this sort of powering up, powering down 6 times. And the analysis picked up 6 significant occasions on that audio wave file where something happened. I didn't tell AI, by the way, what it was. I just said, show me if you can 6 instances of this, or maybe there isn't 6 instances, but see what you can find. And that's what it came up with. It said there were 6 powerful moments throughout the audio. So it's early stages, but if we can prove that, I think that's even more significant than some of the other stuff that we're doing, which again is in its early stages. This changing of the energy lines, by the way, just to get everybody a bit excited about that, we've done it 7 times, and 7 out of 7 times it's showing up on the audio file. So in other words, it's changing the audio, just as Shaun can't douse because we've changed the line. The audio is changing, the waveform is changing, and that, for me, knowing how I started with all of this, just blows my mind that that's happening.
That's brilliant. That's absolutely amazing. And just to explain, because I know, Shaun, about your wishing and what it is, would you mind just sort of describing what that is so that we can have a visual, if you like, or a sort of, your description of what wishing is? So
yeah, and in fact, you can all go and try this as well. I'll explain to you about the Harold stones. I was dowsing down there, and the two end stones had a field of energy that was probably about a meter away when the dowsing rod swung in, but the central stone, it was only a couple of centimeters. The dowsing rod was almost on the stone before it swung in, and I don't know what came over me. I just had this intention to just go behind the stone and raise an arm from behind the stone, and then raise my other arm in front of the stone, doused again, and sure enough, the energy field was nearly a meter, the same as the other two. And at that point, I was like, "Whoa, hang on, I've got this is a bit magic, this." So I went and spoke to my friend who does a lot of dowsing with me, and we're at the cove. It's not the cove, the Devil's Chair in Avebury, and we tried the same thing there, and sure enough, we were able to bring the energy in when we powered. Sorry, Paul. Powered the stone down. So again, round the back of the stone, and then come around to the front, and we were able to bring the energy field in. So then we tried it again to raise it up, and sure enough, the energy field expanded. And you can actually try this on a person as well. You can try it with the aura field. And if you power a person down and push with 2 fingers on the arm just drops to the side. As you power someone up, they can resist the push of the 2 fingers. So it's quite it's quite such a simple thing, but it's so it's so interactive.
Yeah,
it really
is. Yeah.
It's like there's this, well, a consciousness there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're bridging what dowsers have been finding with scientific instruments to help, let's say, create and provide evidence that is measurable.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
It's really fantastic. Yeah.
And I was just going to say, Alex, very, very quickly that, this is the problem with academia, of course, is that what they want is evidence. So that's what we're trying to do.
That's brilliant. Yeah. Absolutely lovely. Thank you. Sue, you've been very patiently waiting. Would you like to ask your question?
It's been great. Thank you very much, Paul and Shaun. It's great. You probably know this already. I noticed that Robert Yarn and Paul Devereux, and more recently Paolo Di Bertolis and other archaeoacoustic researchers, have found that quite often at sacred sites, there's 110 hertz seems to be the sort of average that they find at these sites. And I wondered if that connected with anything that you'd found.
In terms of the last 3 years, when making recordings from the base of stones, creating recordings, sorry, from the base of stones as opposed to seismic. Seismic can be anything from around about 40 hertz upwards, usually within a range of 40 to 400, I think. But what you've just said there, Sue, is something that I have found, but not consistently when recording the base of stones and working with those sounds. So that hertz has come up, but I wouldn't say it's come up consistently. I'd have to explore that, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I think most of their work was done in interiors, so like the West Kennet and Newgrange and
right.
those sort of places. And Paolo Di Bertolius, I think, was working inside spaces rather than outside. So maybe there is a difference. And then also, I mentioned last time you spoke about Eileen Roche's work at Fornox, where she went in with a group who chanted, and there was little bits of light that came above the stones as they were omming, and then those bits of light joined together in a ribbon, and it didn't fade away until they stopped singing. So this interaction between people and sound and intent, I think, is really interesting. As you touched on the sort of consciousness, I think that's really interesting. And one other thing, sorry, go on.
Sorry, Sue, you just said about the lights joined together in a ribbon.
Yes.
I've seen that myself at the Nine Ladies. I was up there late at night, and I don't want to sound like I'm barking mad, but the end of the dowsing rod had this like a smoke, like an incense stick.
Really? Gosh.
And then these dots, these lights, like a ribbon, just drifted across in front of us.
It sounds similar.
It was there was an awful lot going on. The person I was with said, "Why is the end of your dowsing rod smoking?" I said, "I'm glad you can see that because this is unbelievable." And then these dots, both of us saw this chain of dots all joined together, just drift across in front of us.
Yeah,
that's the first time I've heard anyone else explain the same thing we've seen. So
I'm not sure whether I brought it out last time you spoke, but I went to a conference at Chesterfield, which was everybody who used ancient stones, whether they were druids or amateurs or whatever. All sorts of people were there. And in the break, I picked up this leaflet on Northern Mysteries, and there was an article by Eileen Roche describing this incident where she went into Fornox with a group of people and they were chanting and saw all these things. I wasn't able to ask a question until the end of the day. And I described this to one of the archaeologists, and who should stand up but the author of this article, who is 4 rows in front of me. And she said, yes, that's what I saw, which was, very timely. And I had doubts for the first time where I should stay, a B&B. And I'd gone to this conference because I wanted to talk to Aaron Watson, who'd done quite a lot of research of sound at Stonehenge and other places. And who should be at my B&B next morning at breakfast but Aaron Watson. And so we went to Arborough, together. It was a very interesting weekend, I must say. But and the other thing I was going to ask, a lot of crop circles seem to be under, have energy lines in or around. And I think I mentioned this last time, I have heard sounds from crop circles that were very like some of the sounds that you recorded. So I'm quite interested that there may be this energetic connection between crop circles and the sites that you're recording at.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe. Anyway, thank you. It's really fascinating. Even better second time round.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Sue. Jackie.
Good evening. What a fascinating talk. And I'm in the middle of Derbyshire, only a few miles from a lot of these circles.
We're in Matlock, so.
Well, I'm in Glossop, so I'm not a million miles away. A couple of things. The grass that you were talking about, which was only an inch, did you check any of the sounds that might have been on that line?
We recorded. Yeah, we've got a seismic recording of that particular line. Yeah,
the grass was shimmering.
Yeah, well, we assumed that as far as I'm aware, that was the same line that we were recording, and it was probably about 6-7 feet away from the original point where we were.
Yeah.
And then this was just afterwards. So when we were talking, and I was saying, "Oh, I could hear all this," we looked down, and that's where we saw it moving.
Have you ever played any chanting or different types of music to the stones and recorded it?
Well, we've done the Vimana, haven't we?
Yeah, we've done a Vimana. Yeah.
The bull roarer.
Yeah.
That was at 9 Stones Close.
So you played music to individual stones and recorded it and see what the feedback?
It was just the one cut stone, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, we haven't done. We did talk actually about the possibility of maybe the idea of a Dole Tor and 9 Stone Close, because they're quite close together. What would happen if there was a group at Dole Tor chanting? Remember that conversation?
Yeah.
And then could we hear it at 9 Stone Close? Things like that. Yeah.
Have you, Shaun, ever done anything at the bull ring in Dove Holes? Because the processional march from Arborough went up
to, yes.
Yeah, riding's dowsers, and we've done a couple of visits, full day visits there, and some of the amazing stuff, and nobody hears of it, nobody talks about it, but it was just as important as Arborough. Sadly, there are no stones there, but the connection, from the processional march, the entry and exit into the bull ring. But that's a fascinating place to check out. But as I say, sadly, there are no stones there.
I had visited, oh my goodness, 2 years ago, I should think it was, probably a little bit more than that. We did because there's a church around the back of it, I'm sure.
That's right. Yeah. And a social club. You go around the back of the social club too.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did visit in my very early days of dowsing. It was probably more 3 years ago.
It's really worth checking it out.
I'd need to go back again, definitely. But in terms of a henge, it's a very prominent site. But there's like a park. It's in a park. It's
wow.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe.
Nobody knows about it, and it's been very significant, and there's very, very little documented about it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'll definitely be making a trip up there soon.
Well, let me know, and I'll meet you, because I'm not that far away.
Absolutely, yes.
Great, thanks.
That's okay.
Thank you. And John, you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, hi. I'm on my phone this morning and travelling, so I haven't got my camera on. But I'm based in WA, and there was a couple of things that just wanted to comment on. And one is that I was sort of not associating this with sacred sites, but now I think it is. Over here in WA, I've sort of listened to, if you press your ear against a tree, you can hear those sounds, the thumping sounds. We sort of described it as we thought it was the dwarves working underground, and also the sound of running water. And it was interesting because I didn't associate it with sacred sites at the time, but now, after listening to you, I think it is. And I tried it at various trees, and some places I couldn't hear anything, and other places I could. And it's, I'm not particularly sensitive and that. So I think anybody anybody can do it. Obviously, the trees I was using are they were sort of eucalypts, which have got very smooth bark, so easy to get a kind of seal with your ear. And I've tried it on sort of rugged trees, and I haven't sort of found anything there. So that was kind of like one thing, and the other was where you were talking about the sound going down the line. So over here, we sort of work with a Aboriginal elder, and the Currawong, which is like a really big crow in a sense, and they're known as the messenger bird, and they sort of sing on the lines, and are supposed to communicate on the lines because it goes a lot further. And you've made me wonder what the frequency of the bird call is, if it's a specific, why them specifically compared to other birds.
It's interesting because they're known as the song lines, aren't they? Out in
That's right.
Yeah.
Aboriginal culture.
Yeah.
Song lines.
Just a quick one with regards to the tree, John. If you can listen to the tree before, and then if you hug the tree, but with your heart pushed up against the tree, and then listen after you've done that, see if there's any pitch changes or anything like that, because we've started to find that the aura field of the tree expands when you hug a tree with your heart against the tree. It's
extraordinary.
Interestingly, the first place I experienced this, where we sort of planned a trip, and I was going to go back to that area, and I suspected there was a special reason for the trip. So now I know why.
No, absolutely. Everything's connected.
Yeah.
Thank you, John, and thanks for joining us, and from so far away. It's amazing to have you on the call, and to hear a different perspective as well. I was just gonna mention there was something Mary said. Mary, I don't know if you're still on the call, about the example of how what your recordings reminded Mary of were the combination of frequency and light in a photon as a form of communication. They pop in that way, and they travel in spirals, which is really fascinating.
And that spiral that keeps popping up.
Yeah, it does.
It's a very powerful symbol or mechanic, if you like.
Yeah, good, like very much connected with the toroidal field as well, right?
Yes.
And Maeve Calvert and I just we just recorded an episode of Discovering Dowsing, the podcast, and it's on YouTube and Spotify, etc. But we were just talking about spirals quite extensively, so it might be interesting to sort of join up a few dots there. And Maeve is in your neck of the woods as well. And I know, Shaun, you've met Maeve, and you're connected with the dowsing research group as well. And another question Emma asked earlier about John Stuart Reid's experiments with sound at the pyramids. Is that something you've come across?
Yes, I have come across that. That was I think I sent you a video of it where the sand was altering in the
iris.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating work. It's amazing. Yeah.
Amazing.
Sorry, carry on.
That's all right. Yeah, you carry on, Shaun. What were you going to say?
It just shows how they designed these resonation chambers. It's not just to amplify sound, but it's to create art.
Yeah.
They're using sound to paint a picture.
And
definitely the knowledge to do that.
But it's as Sue was talking about Elaine Roche or Roche, that and you saw it, sorry, the visualizing. And I think that's something that is very much I know Reid's work wasn't about these things kind of coming to life in reality, but it's quite extraordinary. And I think that I think it's accepted that those chambers had a acoustic property to them that's essential to the entire construction of those sites.
Yes, I mean, I think it was extraordinary what he discovered, that when he put the membrane across the sarcophagus,
Amazing.
and then he did these frequencies, that there was a hieroglyph that came up. I think it was to do with Osiris.
Yes.
And there was some other hieroglyph that appeared. And
Yeah.
he had gone over there with terrible back pain. He didn't think he'd get there because he was in such pain. And after he'd played these things and these hieroglyphs had appeared, his pain had gone.
Amazing.
And he thought, oh, it's because I'm really interested in what's happening and it'll come back. But it didn't come back. So I think there are other ramifications. And I think this also ties up with Veda Austin's work with her, hydroglyphs, where she's discovering. So I think there are so many connections between consciousness and sound and knowledge. I mean, it's just extraordinary how these things at the moment are coming together.
Yeah.
Very exciting. Very exciting.
Yeah, and connected to that, Sue, it just I can't remember where I recently came across this, whether it was in this group or somewhere else, but there was something about when a potter, I remember one of the recordings you played during the presentation, it sounded like almost like the echoes of people working on the stone.
Yeah,
and
Avebury. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
yes.
quite what we said before, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
It's, almost like a ghost sound.
No,
Isn't it?
definitely. Yeah, an action. Yeah.
Yeah, and it reminded me of what I heard about people making pottery on a potter's wheel. And apparently, if you let's say you're a potter and you're sitting there having a conversation, when the person has finished doing the wheel, if they play it with a stylus but on almost like an old-fashioned sort of piano roller, I think they're called, it picks up the conversation.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Like stone tape theory. Yeah.
I don't know that, but I just think, sound and our consciousness, like, Sue was just relating, and our intentions, and how it gets captured, if you like, and how it can sort of resonate through time, space. It's a fascinating area.
Amazing. Yeah.
It's the biggest rabbit hole you guys have dug. Good luck.
We really have.
We've got a long way to go.
It's a fun one.
A hell of a long way to go.
But
oh gosh, and I wonder where it's going to take us all. It's a sort of, it's such a wonderful community, and it sounds like the support and openness you got from the conversation at the Roll Right Stones, and how that's led from in a beautiful, natural, organic way. Although it's 40-page worth of documents and stuff, you've got to a place where dowsing can be cited.
Yeah.
As a valid research tool.
Absolutely, which it's been struggling with, I suppose since the 19th, when it was employed, I suppose through academic research in the 60s onwards, it's always struggled, I think, for credibility,
I think since the shift in science, towards, let's say, quantum physics and sort of the observer sort of effect, if you like. And it's shifting a little bit more away from materialism now. Overall, there's a sort of general trend, if you like, going towards that more infinite possibility perspective, and multiverse, and all of the other fantastic stuff. And something we've done in the Hurlers Stone Circle, and just regularly when people gather for a ceremony, let's say to mark solstice, either winter or summer, people stand in a circle, they move around, and they kind of might move in a dancey way, and they sing, and we sing songs, and we have dowsers measuring pre and during and post the Michael and Mary lines, which cross in the center, and the Mary line in particular seems to respond to song. It goes from 5 paces wide at the resting when you start to interact with it, to 15 after singing. And so I'm just curious, is a bit like Shaun, when you're doing the whooshing, I wonder what a bunch of people singing with that positive intent
of course.
do with the energy sound measurements.
Yeah. No, definitely.
That's what we need to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Get a group together, even,
Yeah.
Particularly on an eclipse.
Yeah.
Be really, really interesting. Yeah.
See if we get that revving again or something. Who knows what we can find, what the power of communion can do. Yeah.
Absolutely. And there's been a few more messages coming through. Thank you, Emma, about an experiment in a 200-year-old pub, and they heard conversations in the wall. It's just fascinating, isn't it? And yeah, who knows where this is going to go. Thank you ever so much. Is there any other question from anyone before we close with lovely Ali closing the blessing? Okay, I think what a fascinating chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for inviting us.